And that's the end of another remarkable sporting year. A year that we all knew at the start of it will be quite incredible. We didn't really anticipate it would be this hectic. थोड़ा सा strong word हो जाता है, but well, crazy is perhaps an apt way of putting it. Especially the last 4 months, 4 or 5 months, starting with the CWG, then there was the T20 World Cup. CWG के साथ साथ there was the Chess Olympiad, and it culminated with the Football World Cup. And while all this was happening, our cricket team also went into a meltdown of sorts. It's been a year like none other, at least in the recent past. Maybe the recency bias is creeping in, but well, it is what it is. And well, we really couldn't find a better way to sum up this year than to speak to the three guys, the three Express pundits who were on ground at each of these events. And we'll try to make some sense of what has happened in 2022 and what to expect in 2023. You're listening to Game Time with me, Mihir Vasavda, and as always, with me is Rahul Pandey. To kick off the proceedings today, we have with us Devendra Pandey, who's sitting extremely uncomfortably close to me because we have to share a mic, and we've been controlling our laughter. तो देवेंद्र भाई, मैं पहला क्वेश्चन पूछ के 1 मीटर की दूरी बनाने वाला हूँ. 2022 इंडियन क्रिकेट के लिए काफी मतलब अलग सा ईयर रहा. सक्सेस इतना हम नहीं कहेंगे इंडियन क्रिकेट के हिसाब से. काफी कंट्रोवर्सीज, फ्रॉम गांगुली बीइंग रिमूव्ड एज बीसीसीआई प्रेसिडेंट टू कोहलीज कैप्टनसी, द्रविड टेकिंग ओवर एज कोच, और यहाँ वहाँ सब जगह हारना साथ में. कैसे सम अप करोगे आप ये साल?
मीर यू राइट, 2 गज की दूरी बहुत ऐसे हो रही, और शायद क्रिकेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर लोग ने और क्रिकेटर्स लोग ने भी यही कर लिया कि 2 गज की दूरी विन से एक्चुअली नहीं कर पाए, वो हार से है एकदम ज़रूरी, वैसा कर दिया उन्होंने. तो फिर बेसिकली बहुत टफ ईयर रहा है इंडियन क्रिकेट के लिए. आप देखें तो देयर बीन लॉट ऑफ अप एंड डाउन्स, ऑन फील्ड ड्रामा, ऑफ फील्ड ड्रामा, पूरा मसाले मूवी की तरह रहा है. इट ऑल स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम डेविड बीन अपॉइंटेड एज द कोच, देन विराट कोहली गोइंग एज द कैप्टन ऑफ द इंडियन टीम, और उसके बाद ये जो बंगाल में गांगुली की घर वापसी हुई है बेसिकली, ही बैक टू बंगाल क्योंकि और नया रिजीम टेक ओवर करना. सो काफ़ी चटपटा रहा है ये साल, रहा है क्रिकेट के लिए, ऑफ द फील्ड और इन द फील्ड भी.
देवेंद्र भाई, मैंने और आपने T20 वर्ल्ड कप के बाद बात की, और द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी स्पोक अबाउट आफ्टर इंडियाज एग्जिट इन द सेमीफाइनल वाज जो डिस्टेंस है अभी इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम और कह लीजिए इंग्लैंड क्रिकेट टीम, हु आर द अनडिस्प्यूटेड चैंपियंस इन वाइट बॉल क्रिकेट. 1 डे टाइटल है उनके पास, T20 टाइटल है उनके पास, नो अदर टीम हैज डन इट. इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम को कहा जाता है कि दे हैव द मोस्ट रिसोर्सेज व्हेन इट कम्स टू देयर प्लेयर्स. ऑफ कोर्स IPL इज अ बिग एंटिटी इन इटसेल्फ, बट वो जो डिफरेंस है और ये जो टाइम बीता है सिंस द T20 वर्ल्ड कप, देयर हैज बीन अ मंथ दैट हैज गॉन बाय, न्यूजीलैंड टूर हुई, उसके बाद टीम वेंट टू बांग्लादेश. कुछ जो छोटे छोटे चेंजेस हुए हैं इन बायलैटरल सीरीज में, हार्दिक पांड्या की कैप्टनसी की काफी बातें, उनको फुल टाइम वाइस कैप्टन बना दिया व्हाइट बॉल में. डू यू थिंक देयर आर पॉजिटिव साइंस फॉर इंडियन क्रिकेट फैंस टू टेक एट द एंड ऑफ दिस ईयर? और जब हम अगले साल में जा रहे हैं तो एक होम वर्ल्ड कप आ रहा है, डू यू थिंक देयर इज एनी ऑप्टिमिज्म दैट एन इंडियन क्रिकेट फैन कैन टेक अवे?
राहुल, हमारी पहले भी बात हुई है वर्ल्ड कप के बाद, वी ऑल थॉट कि मेजर चेंजेस होंगे. तो as we predicted, not predicted, we knew that Hardik Pandya will be T20 captain going ahead. But yes, अभी भी बहुत सारी मिस्ट्रीज हैं. Look at the team selection. अभी आपने पंत को ड्रॉप किया है कि रेस्ट किया है, only BCCI knows. There is no clarity about it. It's just 1 year before the World Cup, that too हम घर पे खेलने वाले हैं, तो वो भी इनको क्लैरिटी नहीं आ रही है कि अभी सिलेक्शन इनका क्या है, इनका कॉम्पोजिशन क्या है. T20 के लिए आपने भरपूर प्लानिंग करके गए थे, एंड में हुआ क्या? आप सेम पैटर्न से खेले. यू आर नॉट रेडी टू टेक दैट रिस्क जो एक टीम मांगती है वो. और अभी गोइंग अहेड भी अभी आपको सडनली याद आ रहा है कि नहीं, हम ईशान किशन और संजू सैमसन को भी ट्राई करते हैं करके. तो वो भी एक देखना पड़ेगा. फिटनेस बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं जो BCCI कैसे टैकल करेगा, वो भी एक क्वेश्चन मार्क है. तो बहुत सारे अनआंसर्ड क्वेश्चन है जो BCCI के पास ही है, सैडली किसी के पास नहीं है. और BCCI इसको ओपन में आके बताना भी नहीं चाह रहा है कि पंत का फ्यूचर क्या देख रहे हैं. जहां तक मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि पंत को बाद में शायद लोग ऑस्ट्रेलिया टेस्ट मैच के लिए लेंगे, पर क्या वो आपके वनडे के स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स में है कि नहीं है करके. क्या आपको गोइंग हेड आपने क्या डिसाइड किया, इंजरीज के लिए क्या करेंगे. और एनसीए क्या कर रहा है, इतने सारे इंजरीज अगर हुए हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं ये सब तो क्वेश्चन आते ही है ना, पर आपने कुछ किया ही नहीं, आपने खाली खाना पूर्ति के लिए सिलेक्टर्स को भगा दिए। अब वही सिलेक्टर्स को आप पिकअप करने का कह रहे हो कि श्रीलंका का टीम में आप पिक करो, तो विच इज़ वेरी वियर्ड, बहुत ही अजीब चल रहा है सिचुएशन बीसीसीआई के लिए।
अगर जो हमें सम अप करना है, राइट, सो कैप्टन इफी है अक्रॉस ऑल फॉर्मेट्स, तीनों में अगर जो हम कहें तो चलो हार्दिक पांड्या इज मोर और लेस सेटल्ड इन T20। हमें पता नहीं है टेस्ट्स और ओडीआईज में क्या होने वाला है, एंड ओडीआईज एक इम्पॉर्टेंट है विच विल बी आवर लास्ट टॉकिंग पॉइंट फॉर टुडे। बट कैप्टन इश्यू है, कोच इश्यू है, वॉट एवर सेड एंड द्रविड हैजंट रियली इम्प्रेस्ड एज अ कोच सो फार। आपके बीसीसीआई के बेसिक फंक्शनिंग के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस रेज कर सकते हैं, स्पेशली व्हेन इट कम्स टू टीम रिलेटेड मैटर्स, सिलेक्शन बीइंग द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट। एनसीए पे सवाल उठाया गया है। इन सब में विमेंस क्रिकेट हैज हैड अ गुड ईयर, अगर जो हम कहें तो उनके लिए काफ़ी पॉजिटिव स्टेप फॉरवर्ड्स रहे ये साल। बट देन भाई 2023 राइट, इंडिया में 50 ओवर वर्ल्ड कप होने वाला है, आईपीएल एक्सपैंडेड वर्जन होने वाला है, देयर विल बी सो मेनी न्यू थिंग्स गोइंग फॉरवर्ड। कैसे पूरा मतलब हम कहाँ कहाँ देखें और क्या क्या चीज़ों को एड्रेस करना होगा हमें?
या अभी जैसे आपने राहुल द्रविड़ की बात की है, कोच की बात की, और देखा जाए तो राहुल द्रविड़ को जैसे लाया गया तो इतना हुआ कि जैसे भगवान विश्वकर्मा आने वाले और नई बस्ती बसाने वाले, पूरी नई बस्ती बसाने वाले हैं, जो ऐसा हुआ नहीं। राहुल द्रविड़ एंड ऑफ द डे वही उनके पुराने मेथड लेके आए, जो उन्होंने मांगा बीसीसीआई ने दिया। पर अभी आगे गोइंग अहेड कितना उनका सेव होगा, कितना बीसीसीआई हेल्प बैंड करेगा, नया सिलेक्शन कमेटी कैसे आएगा, वो राहुल द्रविड़ के साथ कैसे तालमेल बैठाएंगे, वो सब भी देखना पड़ेगा। और गोइंग अहेड बहुत सारी चैलेंजेस तो रहेंगे, कहीं ना कहीं सारा प्रायोरिटी आईपीएल के लिए है। देखो ये बात तो सच है, इतना हैवी पैसा आ रहा है उससे, पर कहीं ना कहीं कहीं इंडियन क्रिकेट रेडी है वो रिस्क उठाने के लिए। जैसे बुमराह कोई नहीं खेल रहा, एंड यू विल सी एवरी इंजर्ड प्लेयर नाउ विल बी प्लेइंग आईपीएल, क्योंकि सबसे बड़ा हीलर आईपीएल ही है। तो गोइंग एट बीसीसीआई के लिए बहुत सारी चुनौतियां हैं। अभी कहते हैं प्लेयर मैनेजमेंट के, वर्कलोड मैनेजमेंट है, ये है। नवदीप सैनी जैसा प्लेयर जो बांग्लादेश में खेला ही नहीं, वो इंजर्ड हो गया। मतलब इंडियन टीम के साथ, एज टीम के साथ तो खेला उसने, पर इंडियन सीनियर टीम के साथ खेला नहीं, वो रिटर्न आ गया। मैंने ऐसे इंडिया प्लेयर्स हुआ, तो एनसीए क्या कर रहा है इसमें? तो बीसीसीआई के पास बहुत सारी चीज़ है करने के लिए, उनको देखना पड़ेगा कि हाउ थिंग्स विल मूव अहेड। एक प्लानिंग तो करके रखें, राहुल द्रविड़ इज अ वेरी गुड प्लानर, वो अच्छे पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन देंगे, बट व्हाट विल बी द रोड मैप फॉर द इंडियन टीम टू टेक अस टू द टाइटल, वो देखना रहेगा।
सो देवेन भाई, सारा कुछ अगर जो हम ये सब फैक्टर इन करें, 2023 आपका सबसे बड़ा एक्सपेक्टेशन क्या होगा फॉर इंडियन क्रिकेट?
एक्सपेक्टेशन तो नहीं, पर बहुत सारा मैं चेंजेस देखूंगा, स्पेशली आफ्टर द वर्ल्ड कप। एक नया इंडियन टीम आएगा। आई वोंट बी सीइंग मच ऑफ विराट कोहली, रोहित शर्मा, जो इंडियन टीम 10 साल इनके साथ चली या 7-8 साल जिनकी चली, नए फेसेस देखने मिलेंगे गोइंग अहेड। दैट विल डिसाइड द फ्यूचर कि कहाँ जाने वाला है बीइंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ कैप्टनसी। रोहित कितना खेलेंगे आगे चल के कोई पता नहीं, कैसा उनका बॉडी सपोर्ट कर रहा है क्या नहीं कर रहा है। विराट विल ही कंटिन्यू प्ले इन टेस्ट मैचेस, और विल द न्यू गाय विल कम अप, वो भी इनको देखना पड़ेगा। बॉडी उनका फिट है, देयर इज नो डाउट अबाउट इट, और बेंच स्ट्रेंथ अच्छा बनाना पड़ेगा। तो मैं 2023 में इनका ये बीसीसीआई कैसे ये चैलेंजेस फेस करेगा वो देखूंगा।
राइट, नए चेहरे क्रिकेट टीम में। वेल, पॉडकास्ट में आप काफी पुराने वॉइसेस ही सुनोगे, फॉर्चुनेटली अनफॉर्चुनेटली। लेट्स सी हाउ 23 गोज। 22 वैसे ठीक ठाक ही रहा ओवरऑल, अगर जो हम पॉडकास्ट की बात करें तो। देवन भाई, थैंक यू आपको, मतलब काफी इट वाज ग्रेट टू हैव यू दिस ईयर, और आई एम श्योर नए साल में भी काफी टाइम आपको हम बुलाया करेंगे। And joining us next is Sandip G. Rahul Pandey, all yours.
Thanks, Mihir. And of course, joining us now is Sandip G, who was the Indian Express correspondent at Qatar 2022. Sandip, we were, of course, talking a lot about football, talking a lot about the games that happened, and you, of course, wrote so many pieces on what was happening throughout the tournament. But tell us what your experience was when it comes to the diary of a journalist perspective on this tournament. Of course, there was a lot being spoken about the tournament in the build-up. I think perhaps the most talked about event even before it began in 21st century when it comes to sports. How was your experience of Qatar 2022?
It was a perception breaker, man. I haven't been much to the Middle East, but whatever ideas and notions I had of Middle East, some of it remained and some of it were debunked. The more I think about it, the more it seems like a dream. It was like 30 days I was plucked out of the earth and then plucked into some place in the earth. It was totally dreamy stuff, man.
So, one of the things that was, of course, a big talking point was the fact that all the stadiums were in very close vicinity to each other. So, it was almost like a feeling of an Olympic Games or a Commonwealth Games event being held in the same city.
Yeah, so some stadiums were 75 to 80 kilometers apart. And since we had this option of covering 2 matches a day, that's either the first or third or the second or fourth, actually a compact World Cup and ended up being more exhaustive in that way. But it was good for fans. They could go from one place to the other. Like, transportation was superb and convenient for them.
Sandip, Football World Cup, of course, was the showstopper event of 2022. But from an Indian point of view, there was another really, really important event that took place middle of the year. That was the Chess Olympiad, and you were there as well. It gave us a great idea of, I won't want to say bench strength, but the actual strength in Indian chess right now. And given the ages of all those players, it looks incredibly promising for the future.
Absolutely. This was supposed to be India's B team, and it was designated as India's B team, and they've fared much better than the A team in every regard. In terms of the games they played, the aggression they showed, and the opponents they scalped also. Like this bunch of teenagers, terrific. The future of Indian chess looks very bright, especially Gukesh. Gukesh was superb. He's just 18. He's turned 18, and he was like, his maturity was of another level. It was as if he's been around in the circuit for 10 years. He shot composure of somebody say 26, 25 at the peak of his career, and he was a surprise package in a way that Pragnananda, everybody knew about Pragnananda. He was so hyped and so storied a career, but Gukesh's was less so. And Ronak Sandhu, he was another revelation this series, that tournament. And combined with Nihal Sareen, the relatively more experienced of the teenage quartet. Now we should no longer call this India's depth. This is India's nucleus, core.
Yeah. At the start of the year, Sandeep, if we were to tell you, imagine that you would be watching Magnus Carlsen live in action on the chessboard. Magnus Carlsen also, I think, playing a game of football on the beach, was it? And then actually watching Messi lift the World Cup. What a year.
The more I think about it, it's like, this year was just a dream. Messi lifting, when there were a lot of others also, like Cristiano Ronaldo was there.
And we haven't really spoken about the Asia Cup, by the way.
Yeah. Virat Kohli ending his century drought.
Incredible. But before Rahul jumps in and takes it forward, I wanted to ask you about chess. We've had just one flag bearer, so to say, at least on the men's side, for decades now. Our entire lifetime so far, we've spent talking about Anand and looking at chess through his performances. The fact that the Olympiad was held in India in such a short time, right? It was supposed to be held in Russia, then it was shifted last minute because of their invasion of Ukraine, and India put its hand up, hosted it quite magnificently too. Just the road ahead for these players. We've spoken a lot about Pragnananda on these podcasts. You've written a lot about him on our pages as well. But for Pragnananda, Gukesh, Nihal Sareen, all these guys, what would be the essential element to reach as far as Anand has done? And what do you expect from them in 2023?
To match Vichy, they need to win a world championship, which 2023 is very unlikely. But that should be the bigger target for, at least if one of the four becomes a world champion, that's great. That should be the next benchmark for Indian chess. Gukesh, Pragnananda, those two teams should be the prospects, the biggest prospects we have had since Vishwanath Anand, actually. So, unless they win a world championship, I don't think anybody can be called Vishwanath Anand's successor in the spiritual sense.
Yeah. And Sandeep, just to segue a little into football now, you of course spoke about the World Cup and how it ended. You covered it, and it almost seems like the end of a book every time a World Cup is over, and start of another book with the next 4 years. But this one was different in the sense that it happened right in the middle of the Football League seasons. Now that has resumed. But when it comes to this big show, and when it comes to 2026, which will be Canada, Mexico, and USA, what are the key talking points for football? How can this event take it a step ahead? Which seems rather impossible as of now, given how fairy tale of a World Cup this was, not just because of its conclusion, but also because of the group stages. There have been talks about 48-team tournament. There have been talks about doing away with the simultaneous matches on match day 3 of group stage, which was quite the drama. I mean, in Group B itself, there was a stage when Japan and Costa Rica were inching past Germany and Spain for the round of 16. How do you see football should amp up this mega tournament of its without losing the sheen?
Yeah, probably they'll end up with 48 teams only, but it will consume just the same days. But taking away this third simultaneous matches will be killing the soul of the group stage matches. I mean, that's when it all gets thrilling, when everything happens, when there's a lot of intrigue, drama, all sorts of. So, I mean, FIFA shouldn't ideally tamper with that. I don't think they'll tamper with that either. But yeah, 48 teams, it's going to be congested kind of a tournament, but then there are more teams.
Yeah, and it looks the right time to actually amp it up to 48 teams, given how the teams from Africa and Asia performed at this World Cup. Just looks like right timing for FIFA. So, yeah, I guess we'll be looking into what football has for us in store in 2023. There's a Women's World Cup, of course, coming our way. League action has just about resumed as we speak. And, well, as far as talking sports in 2022 is concerned, we are not just done yet. Well, time for us now to move a little further back up to Birmingham Games 2022. And joining us right now is Shivani Naik, who was, of course, there as the eyes and ears of Indian Express covering the whole event. On to you, Mihir.
Yeah, Shivani, I mean, busy year. Of course, there was the Thomas Cup win, the rise of the doubles. We'll be talking of that. The story, I mean, in a way for me this year, as far as the Olympic sports go, is also the rise of track and field, right? I mean, and that was what we saw at the CWG. I mean, just a couple of weeks before that, Neeraj Chopra won the silver medal at the World Championship. Already ek high tha. And then to see those performances at Birmingham would have been kind of extraordinary and gives us a lot of hope for 23.
Yeah, absolutely. I think track and field is the story of was the story of the last Olympics, and it continues to be something that's. It's also just the beginning of the entire explosion of good results. So, and Neeraj Chopra wasn't even there at Birmingham, and India still ended up with some very very awesome medals. So, yeah, I think track and field is the big sport now.
Apart from Sable, which was of course an incredible result, anything that really catches your eye, something that you'll be looking at very closely in the coming months and years?
Yeah, of course. I think Avinash Sable battling it out with the Kenyans was the big race on the track. But I think the triple jump and the long jump was equally, I think, medaling at the Commonwealth Games in those events, in the jump events. There was, of course, Tejaswin Shankar getting the bronze in the high jump. But I think having 3 jumpers in contention for a podium sweep, India eventually ended up with two of the medals. But I think that was another big result for India.
Yeah, and it was also a big year for badminton, as Mihir has already mentioned, Shivani. I mean, of course, even before we jump into the Commonwealth Games, India's triumph at the Thomas Cup was historic in itself. And there were a lot of expectations after that result with the Indian contingent going into the Commonwealth Games. And they didn't disappoint at all, did they? I mean, just the fact that this unit of Indian badminton stars right now looks so young is probably a sign that even bigger things can be expected of them come the 24 Olympics and come the many events in the years.
I think there was a slight disappointment in the sense that India missed out on the team gold. And Commonwealth Games is where India was expected to sweep the medals. That team gold will always rankle, given India was the defending champion. But of course, I think Satvik Chirag getting gold, I think India's first gold in men's doubles. Lakshya Sen really giving his absolute best in that final. And Sindhu, of course, I mean, she was expected to. It was a surprise that she didn't have a CWG medal until now. She really won it in style. So the individual results were great. But yeah, the team gold is something that might just be the one missing from the whole. It's a tiny quibble, but yeah, that one hurts.
The doubles, Shivani, holds out a lot of promise, and like you really hammer home the point in your year-ending piece, it's not just about Satvik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty now, isn't it? Like there is bench strength developing. I don't know if it's too early to say that, but it does look promising.
Oh, it's supremely promising. It's doubles is a huge result, considering we started out with absolutely no. We don't have the doubles tradition. India doesn't have the doubles tradition. India has always had singles players who chipped in with in the doubles ties. But Satvik and Chirag have really, they've hit the top 5 now, and they're competing with the best. Whenever they enter the court, there is always a possibility that they will, beat the top Indonesians, the top Chinese, and the Koreans and the Japanese. So I think that way you have a top pairing which everyone looks up to. They will get the results in the next few years, but you also have reasonable depth in terms of the quality. The quality difference between the number 1 and number 2 isn't as wide as in some of the other events. And I think also the difference between number 2 and number 3 is also not very, it's not like one yawning gap. So I think that is what makes you hopeful about a string of good results in doubles.
Shivani, in the lead up to Paris 2024, of course, we have Asian Games coming up ahead next year. What are your expectations in terms of the events that Indian fans can look up to for the medals in that event? And what are the track and field events that you are looking forward to now that India has had, 8 medals at 2022 Birmingham?
I think Avinash Sable, the medal that he missed at the World Championships, or just a top 5 finish, even if there wasn't a medal in there, because of probably not so great race tactics at the World Championships. So that steeplechase medal is one that I would really, I think Asian Games will be relatively simpler, but that's the one medal that we should probably be looking at. Also, Neeraj Chopra, he has the target of the 90 mark, which he obviously will be looking forward to crossing. And I think back-to-back medals, Olympic medals will be great. But I think just broad basing the entire, even our expectations, a medal probably in the jumps. I think the entire javelin legacy being taken forward, I think that's another thing. I think Andrew had an excellent story on DP Manu. So it'll be great if Neeraj isn't a one-off in javelin. But it'll be nice to get to be in medal contention, at least in the Olympic finals in jumps, as well as the middle distance events that India traditionally is sort of good at. Even like a good final should be good for India. But that's track and field. A women's shooting medal is something that should be looked forward to. And I think the Asian Games and the World Championships in 2023 will give a fair hint of where India is placed. There's a good crop of young shooters coming on. So I think that's another medal. But if India can go beyond these sports, your boxing, wrestling, badminton, shooting, if they can go beyond the usual suspects, I think that'll be the breakthrough that I would want in 2024. Yeah.
Well, there it is. Words and insights from our expert and from our eyes and ears as she was at Birmingham 2022. Well, and that is it when it comes to 2022. That was at Express Sports Podcast. Thank you so much, Shivani, for joining us. Thank you so much, Sandip. Thank you so much, Devin Bhai. And of course, thank you so much, Mihir, my co-host. But of course, all of this won't be possible without our producer Shashank in the background. So thanks to you as well, Shashank, for making us sound so good all through this year. And last but not least, thanks to you, the listeners. And we have a big year up ahead of us. So one thing that you can be sure of is your one-stop destination for all things sports and for more of such discussions. So yeah, have a great, happy new year up ahead and just stay tuned to Express Sports Podcast.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Abhishek Kumar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.